Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. In this video is to bring you a closer look at the Bommer number LB4310-400-646. This is a 4x4 single acting spring hinge, full mortise, residential weight, lube bearing, steel base, and satin nickel plated is what this is. This is a fairly common hinge. Let's dissect the part number. LB stands for lube bearing. That's a maintenance-free bearing type of construction proprietary to Bommer. Okay. The 4310 is a reference to many things, actually. The location of the screw holes, their specific templated pattern. This happens to be called template pattern, but their dimensional specifics. The square corner. The fact that this hinge is 96 thousandths of an inch thick is inferred in that part number as well. The -400 tells us that the hinge is 4 inch tall and 4 inch wide. And the -646 says two things. It first of all means that the hinge is made of steel and that the hinge finish, the finish on the hinge is 646. That means satin nickel. So it's a satin nickel finish on solid steel. All of that conspires to mean it's a single acting spring hinge. It's just a spring hinge that you would use on a residential door, really. So this is full mortise. You can see from the swag on the hinge leafs there that when the leafs are brought parallel, they're meant to be mortised flush to the edge of the door and frame. This is UL listed for a fire rated application, and that would be in your home. If you had an attached garage, that door is typically fire rated. As a rule, I believe it to be fire rated. This would comply with fire door requirements of it being self-closing. This is a grade 1 hinge. That means that it's been tested to 1 million life cycles. It is non-handed. It can be used on left-hand or right-hand doors. This is what they call self-lubricating bearings inside of there, and that's the LB part. This is an ANSI templated screw hole pattern. We're going to get to the template in a moment. Pivot point allows the pivot point aligns with standard residential butt hinges. What that means is this. The vertical axis of pivoting here is compatible with typical 4x4 hinges. You can mix and match spring hinges and non-spring hinges together and it will work just fine. So long as the hinge thickness of the other hinge is between 85 thousandths and 109 thousandths thick. That's typical and common. If you're not sure of what you're dealing with, if you put a tape measure on the edge of your hinge thickness, if it's obviously more than 1/8 of an inch, you might have a commercial grade hinge. This would not be proper. But if it's obviously less than 1/8 of an inch, then it's certainly this. Steel-based, square corner, 8 holes in here. Screws are included. You're going to get machine and wood screws with this. This is available in all of the common finishes, your brass finish, chrome, bronze, prime coat, zinc, black japanned, oil rubbed bronze. Bommer will certainly entertain custom finishes as well. There's a guide below this video to how many spring hinges you need based on the size of the door. And if your order comes in a box, it's probably on the back of the box. If it doesn't, it's listed there. And we're going to get to that in a moment. Let's jump down to that link called template. The template will give you all of the important dimensional properties that we have not already covered. It specifically shows you the location of the screw holes. That's important because there's lots of spring hinges and they're differentiated by generally the location of the screw holes, where they are actually in the leaf of the hinge. If you're not sure, you'll have to go somewhat work backwards and determine if this hinge matches where your existing holes are. And if you need help finding that out, there's a link on our website under the video gallery section. The video is titled something to the effect of how to identify the spring hinge that you have, something like that. The template is also going to give you the other important dimensional properties that we've not covered. If you have any questions on interpreting that, please feel free to reach out to us. Now, there's a certifications and hinge selection guide link that's below this video along with the installation instructions. Let's do the certifications first. So, and again, that's on the back of your box. It's that table that's there. But here's what we're faced with. If it's a 4x4 hinge, you are most certainly using this on an 1 3/4 door. If your door is 85 pounds, they're talking about 2 spring hinges and then 1 regular butt hinge. If you've got a door that's up to 110 pounds, they want all 3 spring hinges. Now, I'm a fan of all spring hinges, and it's not for the obvious reason, because these are relatively inexpensive to begin with. But the fact of the matter is, when you have more spring power on reserve rather than less, what you'll encounter is a better ability, a better percentage of controlling the door operation. So what happens is, as your door is operating, you push that door open, you've got all that energy stored in the spring. As you let the door close, that energy is lost through the closing cycle, and at the very end of the closing cycle, you have hardly no stored energy left. And what happens is, when you have a what will happen in that circumstance is that when you are underpowered in the spring department, or if you're on the borderline, or if there's some sort of mitigating circumstances that make the door less predictable in terms of accurately closing, you'll find that you're going to have to set the tension so high just to get the door with enough stored energy in the spring to just kind of slam home just on inertia alone. That's not what you want at all. You don't want the door making too much contact with the frame. That will cause damage in the long term. And when you have, if you've got a 20-pound door, 1 spring hinge is probably going to do it. But you might find that it will not latch the door. You can find that it'll get it to the closed condition, but not always latched. I liken it to a tugboat. They don't go very fast, but they pull a lot of weight, and that's because they've got torque. When you've got lots of stored energy in that spring, meaning not out here where it doesn't matter as much, but down at the closing cycle, you'll notice that you can better control the actual latching of the door. And if you're using this as a fire-rated door, which you very likely are, or on a fire-rated door, you've got 2 obligations. The door has to be self-closing, and it has to be self-latching. And if it's not both, then you technically don't have a fire door. So you're better off, in my opinion, especially if this is an exterior door, to opt towards the conservative quantity of hinges and go all spring hinges, or 2 if you think you need 1. You'll find that you've got a better control over the door. The door will more predictably latch, because you're overcoming all the air resistance of that 30-inch, 32-inch, 36-inch by 80-inch, 17, 18, 20 square feet worth of door. Lots of air resistance. The weight of the door, the fact that it's at a dead stop when it's in the open position, the friction of the latch bolt as it hits the strike plate, all those things conspire to make the use of a spring hinge, in my opinion, really at all not the best option to close a door. I think that hydraulic control is the way to close or control every door, whether it's surface-mounted door closers, overhead concealed, or floor closers. But the truth of the matter is it's thoroughly impractical to have those in all instances, because you're not going to necessarily put a surface closer onto a condo building where there's 90 units and they're all spring hinges. You're not going to put a door closer on your door. You may not literally be able to fit it onto the door opening. Spring hinges are a necessary sort of way to solve a problem, but you need to allow the hardware to do the job as best it can for you. So if you order more spring hinges rather than less, you'll probably find greater success overall throughout the entire 12 months of the year. Conditions will change, barometric pressure will change, meaning you've got a door and in the summertime the back window is always open. Well, the air just races through. Maybe it's preventing the job from being done properly. Who knows? Anyway, more spring hinges, better than less, is the moral of the story. Now, once you get the spring hinges installed and attached to the door, now it's time to set the tension and test the operation. With every order of spring hinges, you will get a tension rod. It's that black piece of steel that you see there. With every hinge that you order, you'll get a tension pin. This client's order happens to have 2 hinges on it, so he's got 2 tension pins. When the tension collar is pointed towards the top of the door, you insert it into one of the holes and then turn it clockwise. And it's into one of those new holes that you reveal is where you insert the tension pin. Up to 3 holes maximum, I think, is what they recommend for these. I don't see that it's specifically listed, but 3 holes is a common quantity to reveal. If you hear any creaking, it's that spring contorting inside of there. You don't want that. You'll have to back it off. If you've got a lot of creaking going on with your hinge, you might want to add another one. Now, if it's an existing hinge, an older hinge, it could be that it's just got some surface oxidation on it, and it's permissible to get yourself a little bit of lubricant and get it down in there. That's permissible from the manufacturer, okay? So go ahead and do that. So that's how you set your tension. Set a hole or two of tension, and then test your door operation, and then, you know, fine-tune it to the exact proper sort of installation. There's a link below this video to the installation instructions, which I just covered with the tension pin, tension rod, tension collar discussion. Finally, there's a link, almost finally, there's a link to this below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up all things Bommer hinge related. Then finally, the last thing I'd like to point out to you is the Bommer logo, and right above it it says Made in USA, a fact that Bommer is quite proud of, as am I, to represent them. If you have any questions on the Bommer LB4310-400-646 or any other Bommer product, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.